Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Poop, the thing that we all make but refuse to share with our friends on social media. For a galaxy so rich in detail and nuances, no one ever seems to go to the bathroom in Star Wars. Some of you might argue that this is an unnecessary detail that no one really cares about and would just slow down the pacing of a story. Others might just say, Alan, you are a child. I would say that you're wrong. Having your character poop is essential for character development and creating a realistic and believable individual. I would also like to add that long-term clenching can result in some really serious health problems and eventually even lead to death. In order to illustrate my point, I've written an entire new scene for Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Being from Tatooine, Anakin could never really get used to the cold of deep space. Despite all the heaters built into Padme's luxury yacht, the cold seemed to seep in through the hole and also constrict his bowels. Being so close to Padme also had that same effect. Anakin and the Senator had rekindled their old friendship, but the Jedi apprentice was still not comfortable enough around her to drop a steaming pile of crap in the only refresher on board. Using his considerable Jedi powers, he'd been able to clench his way through the first few days of their long journey from Naboo to Tatooine. 4 days later, that was no longer necessary. The lack of exercise, along with dehydrated military rations they had been consuming, had created a blockade in a system worse than the Trade Federation had created over Naboo. See, it still gives the writer plenty of artistic choices, and more importantly, it makes Anakin Skywalker much more relatable and realistic. And more importantly, it makes me wonder, how did Anakin go to the bathroom once he became Darth Vader? Could his constipation have caused him so much poopy pain and anger that it helped fuel his turn to the dark side? Could his suit of armor have helped him relieve himself? Well, we're going to talk about that and 9 other things you didn't know and probably don't want to know about Anakin Skywalker's armor. Now guys, we're not going to be dickheads and wait until the end of the video to talk about what you guys all came here for. We can trust that you'll watch this entire video because we've randomly inserted a clip of Padme naked before the end of this video. Anyway, how did Darth Vader make a poop? His suit was so complicated, it makes trying to go to the bathroom in a scuba suit or ski pants seem easy in comparison. His suit of armor had dozens of pieces that needed to be removed, and oftentimes he needed assistance to remove those pieces. And even when he removed those pieces, Anakin was just the body and 4 stumps. Well, 5 if you include his head. The point is, the ergonomics of your average toilet is not designed for an individual like that. So the answer is, well, he just went in his suit. Vader had a waste recycler built into his armor, similar to the systems that long-haul spacers would wear. Now, we all know that astronauts here on Earth recycle their own urine into drinking water because it costs around $48,000 per liter to ship it into space, even if you have Amazon Prime. But recycling your poop into food, well, that doesn't seem as appealing. Maybe because our technology, or more likely our genetics, have not evolved to the point where we can actually do that. Although some scientists have proposed that we could break down feces into salt and methane and a few other components and use that to grow a food similar to Vegemite, which is exactly why only Australians eat Vegemite. Now, how did Vader make poop in the first place? Well, his armor basically took care of everything for him. On the collar that went around his neck, Vader had a feed straw that allowed him to suck RepMed Vita Paste, which was stored in an implanted bladder. This paste was refilled every month, which makes me think either Vader carried around a lot of paste in his body, or it was made from recycled poop. Vader also had another way to eat, and that was through an IV, because surprise, recycled poop, as you would expect, still tastes like poop. But I'm sure no matter what Vader was eating, he had it with a side of sadness. The fact that Vader had to be fed poop paste and through a tube says a lot about how just terribly damaged the man was. Vader didn't need the suit just to breathe, it literally kept most of his vital functions going. He had a heart implant that regulated his pulse, pumped blood through his body, and replaced many of his major arteries. He had a lung implant that helped him run his respiratory system, and he also had an optical shade over his eyes at all time because his corneas were damaged. He had dozens of cables running through his body as well. Some came out of his chest, others lined his throat. He also had numerous needles stuck into his face that took readings from his brainwaves. The only thing that didn't change from Anakin was his hatred for sand. Now you might be wondering how Vader controlled all these complicated systems inside of his suit. You would think with all those wires in his bodies and probes stuck into him, he could just access all of his internal systems like a T-800 cybernetic organism. But no, Palpatine's technicians were genuine dickheads and liked to make things more complicated than they needed to be. If you look closely at Vader's neck collar, there were a series of controls which Vader manipulated with his tongue or by making mouth gestures. This would control the heads-up display system inside of Vader's helmet, which made him a more ruthless and efficient killing machine. This also meant that Vader was constantly doing this inside of his helmet. Like most great men, Darth Vader's blood contained a carefully balanced cocktail of drugs and stimulants that kept him alive and also functioning at peak levels. He had a neurotoxin derived from cohuman centipedes that could be injected into his suit for pain relief or relaxation after a stressful torture session. Vader was also constantly being injected by Sith alchemy chemicals. These were supposed to boost his strength and stamina. They call it Sith alchemy. I'm pretty sure it's just your run-of-the-mill anabolic steroids plus a little bit of meth. This is probably all a part of Palpatine's plan to make Darth Vader more controllable by turning him into a junkie, which was the real dark side of Star Wars. Like a German luxury automobile, Vader's suit was so fully packed with extra functions, it was constantly breaking down and needing repairs. This was another way that Vader depended on the Emperor and his technicians. Vader's armor was so complicated that it required a full diagnostic every month. All this data was collected on chips which were connected to a central computer within the suit itself. Vader's suit would also routinely have minor glitches, and his internal wiring would have connectivity issues. Which leads me to the conclusion that while a $20,000 BMW adventure bike might be your dream motorcycle, a simple single-cylinder Kawasaki dual sport might be all that you need, and will require a lot less maintenance. In order to make sure all the complex equipment inside of his suit was working, Vader depended on several energy cells. His central chest computer and vital systems were designed to run for weeks, but they needed to be recharged just like anything else that used batteries. In case he completely ran out of batteries, Vader also had a backup energy cell which could keep his life support going for an extended period of time. Vader would usually recharge during his sessions in his meditation sphere, but also could recharge in the field. His suit had a variety of adapters, including Apple's completely useless and infuriating lightning system. Because Vader was constantly walking around with several batteries on him, it meant that he always had to fly privately. Just like here on Earth, the Star Wars equivalent of the TSA didn't allow smart suitcases on flights. Vader's suit was heavy, like 265 pounds heavy, or for those who use the metric system, 7,000 kilometers. Vader's shoulder armor alone weighed 27 pounds, or 3.4 centimeters. Along with the weight, his armor was poorly fitted to him and constraining, which prevented Vader from being flexible enough to perform even the most basic maneuvers like putting your hands above your head and then patting the top of your head and rubbing your belly at the same time. More advanced moves like downward dog were outright impossible. Vader's prosthetics were also poorly built and poorly fit, unlike the ones that were made for him when he was a Jedi. Eventually, Vader would modify his lightsaber style to include more aggressive power moves that he would enhance with his armor's increased weight. Besides looking really cool in slightly windy areas, Vader's cape was actually very functional. It was made out of a protective material known as armor weave. It was capable of protecting Vader from basic environmental damage, including fire, acid, and of course, sand. It also prevented dirt and grime from getting into the more sensitive parts of his suit. Armor weave was also strong enough to block shrapnel and energy resistant enough to absorb weak blaster bolts. Now, naturally, being stuck in an extremely uncomfortable suit for an extended period of time will do some serious damage to an individual's mental health. Vader felt an increased sense of isolation in his suit. Not only did he help kill basically everyone he knew, he also lost Padme in the process, and now his suit made him so intimidating and mysterious that he had no acquaintances or friends. The suit also gave him a sense of claustrophobia. That's why eventually Anakin would go on to build a meditation chamber where he could de-stress and walk around on his little stubs. It was during these meditation sessions that Anakin would think about Padme naked.
I'm not afraid to die. I've been dying a little bit each day since you came back into my life.
What are you talking about?
I love you.
Emotionally naked, guys, not actually naked. This is a PG channel. Well, actually, now that I think about it, I wouldn't exactly recommend children watching this show either. Anyway, despite all the negative effects this suit had on Anakin, the pain from wearing it helped feed Anakin's dark side force powers. Well guys, there you have it. 10 pieces of information about Darth Vader you probably didn't even need to know. But now that you do, you probably can't help but feel bad for the poor guy. Now that I think about it, Obi-Wan Kenobi probably should have discreetly put his hand over Anakin's mouth and just suffocated him, or gently rolled him into that lava. It would have been the right thing to do. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button. Also try to have at least one bowel movement per day. Thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.